Welcome to Data Talk, presented by IDEA Data and Research. DATA stands for Data Analysis Techniques Applied. Data Talk is a series of webinars for Arkansas's local education agencies on the use of data, particularly for special education staff. Special Education Annual Performance Report. In this episode of Data Talk, we will be presenting an overview of the Special Education Annual Performance Report indicators. The Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, also known as IDEA, requires each state to develop a state performance plan and annual performance report, which are abbreviated as the SPP APR, that evaluates the state's efforts to implement the requirements and purposes of the IDEA and describes how the state will improve its implementation. The SPP APRs include indicators that measure child and family outcomes and other indicators that measure compliance with the requirements of the IDEA. Indicator 1, Graduation. Indicator 1 is a results indicator using a subset of the Elementary Secondary Education Act, also known as ESEA, Title I 4-year cohort data. The measurement for Indicator 1 is the percent of youth with IEPs graduating from high school with a regular diploma. This data is reported 1 year in arrear. Indicator 2, Dropout. Indicator 2 is a results indicator with two reporting options. Arkansas chose option 2 and uses a subset of the Common Core of Data, dropout data. The measurement for dropout is the percent of youth with IEPs dropping out of high school. The data is reported 1 year in arrear and is a single-year event rate for students in grades 7 through 12. Indicator 3, Assessment. Indicator 3 is a results indicator which examines participation and performance of children with IEPs on statewide assessments. Section 3B is the participation rate for children with IEPs, and Section 3C is the proficiency rate for children with IEPs against grade level and alternate academic achievement standards. The data are reported on both the regular assessment and the alternate assessment. Indicator 4, Discipline. Indicator 4 is comprised of 4A and 4B. Let us look at 4A. Indicator 4A, Suspension Expulsion, is a results indicator which compares special education and general education suspension expulsion rates. 4A, Part A, is the percent of districts that have a significant discrepancy in the rate of suspensions and expulsions of greater than 10 days in a school year for children with IEPs. And if a district is identified under 4A, Part A, they must conduct a review of policy, procedures, and practices related to discipline. Indicator 4A, Part B, is the number of districts found to have inappropriate policy, procedures, or practices as a contributing factor for having been identified with a significant discrepancy. Indicator 4B, Suspension Expulsion, is a compliance indicator and compares rates of suspensions and expulsions for a specific race ethnicity category in special education to all race ethnicity categories in general education. The measurement for 4BA is the percent of districts that have a significant discrepancy in the rate of suspensions and expulsions of greater than 10 days in a school year for children with IEPs. And if a district is identified under 4BA, they must conduct a review of policy, procedures, and practices related to discipline. 4BB is the percent of districts found to have inappropriate policy, procedures, and practices as a contributing factor for having been identified with significant discrepancy by race ethnicity. Indicator 5, Education Environments. Indicator 5 is a results indicator which looks at the percent of children with IEPs age 6 to 21 served in the following settings. 5A, inside the regular classroom, 80% or more of the day. 5B, inside the regular classroom less than 40% of the day, and 5C, in separate schools, residential facilities, or hospital homebound placements. Indicator 6, preschool environments. Indicator 6 is a results indicator and looks at the percent of children aged 3 to 5 with IEPs attending 6A, regular early childhood program, and receiving the majority of special education and related services in the regular early childhood program, and 6B, children attending a separate special education class, a separate school, or a residential facility. Indicator 7, preschool outcomes. Indicator 7 is a results indicator. Percent of preschool children aged 3 through 5 with IEPs who demonstrate improved 7A, positive social emotional skills, including social relationships. 7B, acquisition and use of knowledge and skills, including early language communication and early literacy. And 7C, use of appropriate behaviors to meet their needs. Each outcome is measured against the following two summary statements. Summary A, of those preschool children who entered or exited the preschool program below age expectations in an outcome, the percent who substantially increased their rate of growth by the time they turned 6 years of age or exited the program. Summary B, the percent of preschool children who were functioning within age expectations in an outcome by the time they turned 6 years of age or exited the program. Indicator 8, parent involvement. Indicator 8 is a results indicator. Percent of parents with a child receiving special education services who report that schools facilitated parent involvement as a means of improving services and results for children with disability. Arkansas uses two different surveys, one for early childhood and one for school age. Therefore, two sets of data are reported. Indicator 9, disproportionate representation. Indicator 9 is a compliance indicator and looks at the percent of districts with disproportionate representation of racial and ethnic groups in special education and related services that is a result of inappropriate identification. Districts that flag with a risk ratio greater than 3.00 must complete a self-assessment of policy, procedures, and practices. Indicator 10, disproportionate representation by specific disability category. Indicator 10 is a compliance indicator. Percent of districts with disproportionate representation of racial and ethnic groups in specific disability categories that is a result of inappropriate identification. Districts that flag with a risk ratio greater than 3.00 must complete a self-assessment of policy, procedures, and practices. Indicator 11, child find. Indicator 11 is a compliance indicator and looks at the percent of children who were evaluated within 60 days of receiving parental consent for initial evaluation, or if the state establishes a time frame within which the evaluation must be conducted within that time frame. Indicator 12, early childhood transition. Indicator 12 is a compliance indicator. The percent of children referred by Part C prior to age 3 who are found eligible for Part B and who have an IEP developed and implemented by their 3rd birthday. Indicator 13, secondary transition. Indicator 13 is a compliance indicator and looks at the percent of youth with IEPs aged 16 and above with an IEP that includes appropriate measurable post-secondary goals that are annually updated and based upon an age-appropriate transition assessment, transition services, including course of study that will reasonably enable the student to meet those post-secondary goals, and annual IEP goals related to the student's transition service needs. Indicator 14, post-school outcomes. Indicator 14 is a results indicator looking at the percent of youth who are no longer in secondary school, had an IEP in effect at the time they left school, and were A, enrolled in higher education within 1 year of leaving high school, B, enrolled in higher education or competitively employed within 1 year of leaving high school, or C, enrolled in higher education or in some other post-secondary education or training program, or competitively employed or in some other employment within 1 year of leaving high school. Indicator 15, Resolution Sessions. Indicator 15 is a results indicator, percent of hearing requests that went to resolution sessions that were resolved through resolution session settlement agreements. This is a state-level indicator and is not reported on individual districts. Indicator 16, Mediation. Indicator 16 is a results indicator, percent of mediations held that resulted in mediation agreements. This is a state-level indicator and is not reported on individual districts. Indicator 17, State Systemic Improvement Plan. The state identified measurable result. Indicator 17 is a results indicator, and it looks at the percent of students with disabilities in grades 3 to 5 from the targeted schools whose value-added scores in reading is moderate or high for the same subject and grade level in the state. This is a state-level indicator and is not reported on individual districts. Thank you for reviewing Data Talk. We hope you have found it to be helpful and will join us for upcoming webinars. If you wish to contact us, you may do so through the mail at IDEA Data and Research, University of Arkansas at Little Rock, 2801 South University Avenue, Education 209. Little Rock, Arkansas 72204. Our phone number is 501-683-7219. Our fax number is 501-569-8238. If you have any questions, you can contact Dr. Jody Fields at jafields@ualr.edu.